Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. All right, first question. Hey Jason, I just set an easy deadlift PR at 595, but have issues getting my squat up. I can get a 405 triple easily, and I've gotten to a 445 all right. But whenever I squat past 400, my back gets really tight and achy for days. Is this an imbalance you've seen? How might you go about correcting it? I'd like to get my squat at least to 500 because that's what everyone wants. This is going to be hard to answer this question in any real detail because I don't know what style of squat you're using, how many years you've been squatting and deadlifting, if you're talking about beltless, not beltless. But here's what I'm going to say. You probably are not a really long-term lifter because usually when you've been doing both exercises for many, many years, usually past about the 5-year straight mark of doing both lifts consistently, what you start seeing in more advanced lifters, the gap closes between the squat and the deadlift. The gap closes a lot. Like in my case, you guys have seen me, you guys have seen me walk in and easily deadlift 90 pounds more than you've seen me squat recently, but I took 2 years off from squatting. In your case, though, we're talking about a 150-pound difference. So that's part of it, and then maybe you might have good leverages for the deadlift. You might have long arms. So what I'm usually going to see happening here, particularly guys who are low bar squatting, you may or may not be, what you oftentimes see with something like this, you see an enormous gap because your back is a lot stronger than your legs. Your back's a lot stronger than your legs, and if you're low bar squatting in particular, you're having a compensatory effect. How do you deal with this? Back recovery. Get a massager on your back, soak it in hot baths, do whatever you have to do to get your back recovered. And squat more. You have to just squat until that imbalance corrects. And for now, it's probably against some compensatory strength like you guys see on some of my heavy squats where my back starts taking over. And yours might be even more excessive than that. And you just have a really strong back. Maybe you've done tons and tons of rowing and pulling more so than you did squats for a long time. There could be a lot of factors involved, but without knowing your specifics, it's hard to say. But what I will say, the fix to this is to keep squatting. Keep working on your squat, put an extra focus on it. And if you need to, because your deadlift is so much further ahead than your squats, if you want to back your deadlift down a little bit and not do it as often, it will probably be okay if you want to spend a period of time squat specializing. So it just comes down to where your priorities lay, but just accept that your deadlift is going to stagnate for a long time if you do that. So it's kind of up to you how you want to go about fixing that. But the only way to really fix it is to squat more. You clearly have a strong enough back to squat a hell of a lot more than you are with a 150-pound difference between your maxes. So work on it, fix it. And the exception to that might be people who are just very gifted in their leverages for the deadlift, someone like Keller Woolham. Then that's a different animal completely. All right, next question. Hey Jason, what is the best bench builder / peck developer out of flat dumbbell, incline dumbbell, and dips if used as a secondary chest exercise? Cheers. Bench press, flat bench with a barbell. Now, that aside, if you want a secondary exercise, some people might jump up and say, oh yeah, obviously the incline dumbbells are great for correcting a pec imbalance. Well, that's if you're a problem who really, really struggles with your chest and it's mostly your upper chest that's the issue. Incline dumbbells are a fix for that if done correctly. But if we're talking about just overall development and strength, particularly, it's going to carry over to your bench press and just putting more meat on your pecs, the weighted dip, hands down. I don't think there's any contest there. The weighted dip does everything that you want out of the flat dumbbell. It does everything you want out of the flat dumbbell, but lets you handle more weight while doing the same range of motion. And again, it gets the same stretch reflex and the deeper range of motion you get from dumbbells, but it involves more overall muscle mass. So we start talking about involving more overall muscle mass on a lift. What does that mean? That means you're going to get better carryover to a big compound like the bench press. It's more likely to improve your bench press more than these other lifts because there's more total muscle involvement and you're getting the same stretch reflex benefit you would get out of dumbbells. The only difference is that some people can't safely do dips and they might need to use dumbbells as a secondary exercise. So that's ultimately what it comes down to. So again, a dumbbell flat bench press or a decline dumbbell bench press is completely worthless. It's a waste of time for anyone who can safely do, because of their structure, can safely do weighted dips. I wouldn't even consider those. It hands down is a better overall chest builder and bench press increaser both. All right, next question. Hey Jason, what is your take on people who can do half of their full body workout at a time and take a couple of hours off to do some work or personal business and proceed to finish the rest of their workout later in the day? This is kind of similar to what you do with Bulgarian training, but what are consequences and benefits to doing this? Thank you, Jason. The consequences and benefits, you're going to be able to do more work. You are going to have the capacity to do more work. You're going to lift heavier weight for more sets by spacing them out. The downside, you're doing more work. You might beat your recovery up more. Just more of a time issue. For people who have flexible lifestyles who are seeking maximum strength, this is probably the way to go. Again, that's why I do it that way. I'm in a situation to do that. But you're talking about very serious dedication to strength because you're now training for strength a couple times a day on a full body system. All right, that is a very serious time commitment. So if you actually have to go to a gym or anything like that, you're looking at multiple gym sessions, trips in and out of the gym, check in. But if you've got a home gym and maybe you're in a life situation where it's not a big deal, either you can do work that way, or maybe you get home in the day, you train, then you do some personal business and stuff, and then train again after you get home from work. That's fine also. Just understand there can be time commitment constraints. And because you are capable of generating more work, you will have to pay a little closer attention to overall recovery. But I'm going to say that if a person's lifestyle and work and everything is flexible enough to do this, it's probably flexible enough to accommodate whatever they need to do on the recovery side also. So that really isn't that big of a deal. Again, the reason we tend to space all this stuff into one workout normally, even on full body, is because most people have time commitments and their lifestyle isn't flexible enough to be going to the gym a couple times a day. Again, just depends upon your life circumstance, where you train, how you train, what your job is, things like that. There's a lot of factors involved, and that has to be worked around with any training system that you're seeking maximum results from. And 95% of the population can't accommodate anything that's maximum results. They can shoot for great results, but not necessarily 100% of what they could achieve. But in the situation you described, maybe you can. All right, next question. And this one is asked by none other than my man, Austin Slater. What a name, guys. What a name. Remember that, guys. If your last name is something like Slater, name your son Austin. You'll have higher test levels automatically. All right. Thoughts on the total rep method, where you take your 6 to 8 rep max set, a goal rep of, let's say, 30, and when you hit it, increase weight. The idea is to worry less about sets and reps and just get a predetermined amount of volume. So it might look like 6, 6, 5, 5, 4, 4 equals 30. Not sure if this makes any sense, LOL. Staley, Waterbury, and Old School Arnold, etc., have recommended this in their writings. All right, rep goal systems. I don't think it's a bad way to go about things. We could argue about lack of workload density. We could argue about all this stuff all day long. And I think for a novice lifter, this isn't ideal because you're not going to be able to focus on linear progression as much. But for a more advanced lifter, it's not a bad approach. I'm not saying it's better or worse than other stuff. It is a way to ensure that you get your progressive overload. In other words, if you're trying to slowly increase reps with the same weight, like let's say you've set a goal with, 300-pound bench press or a 400-pound squat to get 30 reps in a session with it, yeah, it would allow you to do that because you can always come back if you're not quite there or you're falling short of adding a single at the end so that you can ensure progressive volume overload. So it's not a bad method of doing that at all, and I think it works. But again, I would say it would really slow your progression unless you're an advanced lifter already. In other words, if you're doing your work sets with 185 on the bench and 315 on the squat, I don't know that I would really worry about this. I would worry about some sort of linear progression or linear periodization or concurrent training or daily max system or something. I don't even know about a daily max system for those people outside of a coach. So it really depends on where you are in advancement. For people who are more advanced and possibly stalling a lot more, I think it's a good way to ensure progressive overload over time. So it's not a bad system at all. It works. All right, next question. Hey Jason, long-time viewer from your ice cream fitness days. My kid is 12 years old and will be going into a contact division for his sport, hockey, this year. I want him to be safe and strong as he will be playing with kids older and more experienced. I just wanted to know what you would recommend as a routine for kids, stay competitive but also safe, rep schemes, movements, etc. All right, brother. If he's not hit puberty yet, or even if he's early puberty and he might not be at 12, don't worry about pushing him to the limit. Progressive overload's not that big of a deal. Keep him away from max effort sets. In other words, I'm going to tell you he needs to be doing 5s and 3s depending on the movements. In other words, he should probably be doing 5 rep sets with his 10 rep max. So bigger barbell movements that don't have an explosive component, things like his squat, deadlift, bench press, your big 3, strict presses, stick with 5s, maybe 3x5s, even something similar to starting strength. But as far as your more explosive movements, he needs to be doing 3s and keep the weights fairly light. In other words, 50 to 60% max range, maybe 3x3 on movements like power cleans, power snatches, stuff like that. That would be the way to go on that. That's what I would recommend. But I would say, yeah, focus on those 6 basic movements: squat, bench, deadlift, strict press, power clean, power snatch. Those will build his foundation. But again, he doesn't need to be going really hard. We don't need to be grinding reps. We don't need to be pushing stuff to failure, because he's not going to gain enough muscle at his hormone levels at that age to justify it or to risk the injuries from it. You're just trying to get him a bit stronger, bulk him up a little bit within the capacity of his hormonal environment. So again, just to keep him stronger and more injury-free in playing, because again, he's going to get hit a lot, and if he's going to get hit by older guys, he needs to be tougher. He needs better bone density, better connective tissue, better muscle. I get that, and I think that's the way to do it, and it'll make him faster and more explosive. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.